Picture this. You're in Renaissance Florence. The streets are buzzing with whispers of betrayal, the air thick with political intrigue. In the shadows of magnificent palaces, a man sits writing by candlelight, penning words that will shake the foundations of political thought for centuries to come. This is the story of Niccolò Machiavelli, and trust me, it's way more fascinating than your typical history lesson. Let's start with the big questions that kept Machiavelli up at night. What makes people truly respect you? Is it better to be loved or feared? When should you show mercy, and when should you strike with decisive force? These aren't just questions for Renaissance princes, they're the same ones that keep modern leaders, influencers, and, honestly, all of us, tossing and turning at night. Think about it. Have you ever been in a situation where being nice got you nowhere? Where playing by the rules meant watching others zoom past you? Where your principles cost you opportunities? That's exactly what Machiavelli saw happening in Florence, and it drove him absolutely crazy. Imagine watching the good guys consistently lose while the manipulators and schemers kept winning. It's enough to make anyone question everything they believe about morality and success. Born in 1469, young Niccolo wasn't born into power. His dad was basically the Renaissance equivalent of a struggling lawyer who loved books. Picture a young boy surrounded by ancient texts, soaking up stories of great leaders and epic failures, while outside his window, the real-world drama of Renaissance politics played out like a Netflix series on steroids. Florence was wild. We're talking assassinations, backstabbing, literally and figuratively, popes leading armies, and alliances changing faster than TikTok trends. The craziest part? Everyone was walking around pretending to be super religious and moral while plotting their next power move. It's like those Instagram influencers posting about authenticity while heavily filtering their photos. The irony would have made Machiavelli laugh if it hadn't made him so cynical. He saw through the facade of virtue that everyone wore like a designer mask, recognizing it as the ultimate power move of his time. But here's where our story takes a dark turn. Machiavelli actually got to play the game himself, rising through the ranks to become Florence's foreign affairs guy. Pretty impressive for someone who started from scratch, right? He was living the Renaissance equivalent of a political glow-up, traveling across Europe, negotiating with kings and popes, basically living the dream. Well, plot twist, it all came crashing down when the powerful Medici family took over. They didn't just fire him, they tortured him and threw him into exile. Talk about a bad performance review. Imagine going from writing diplomatic emails to being ghosted by an entire city-state. Now, here's where things get really interesting. Instead of breaking him, exile turned Machiavelli into the world's first viral political philosopher. He wrote The Prince. Imagine the most savage self-help book ever written, but for rulers. This wasn't just another dusty philosophy book. It was a practical guide to power that would make modern strategy books look like bedtime stories. His main message? Stop living in a fantasy world where being good always wins. In Machiavelli's view, that's like bringing a friendship bracelet to a sword fight. He looked at the story of Jesus, the whole turn the other cheek thing, and thought, well, that ended with a crucifixion, so maybe not the best leadership strategy. It's brutal, but let's be honest. We've all had moments where we wished we'd been less idealistic and more pragmatic. Here's the spicy take that got everyone clutching their pearls. Machiavelli said it's safer to be feared than loved. Why? Because love is like a Twitter following. It can disappear overnight. But fear sticks around. It's like that one embarrassing photo you can never quite delete from the internet. He wasn't saying you should be a monster. That would make people hate you, which is even worse than being unloved. Instead, he was suggesting you should be like that one teacher everyone respected, firm but fair, predictable in your consequences, and occasionally surprising with your mercy. But before you write him off as just another villain origin story, here's the plot twist. What if the prince wasn't actually a handbook for tyrants? What if it was more like a warning label on a pack of cigarettes? This is what power actually looks like. Scary, isn't it? Some scholars think Machiavelli was actually exposing the ugly truth of power to help regular people protect themselves from manipulation. It's like he was the first person to post a scam alert, but for political power. Let's bring this home to your life. Ever had to choose between being nice and being effective? Between what you should do and what actually works? Between keeping your hands clean and getting things done? That's the Machiavellian dilemma right there. Maybe you've seen it at work, in relationships, or even in your social media strategy. The truth is, pure niceness can sometimes be a mask for cowardice, just as pure ruthlessness can be a fast track to loneliness. The real genius of Machiavelli isn't in teaching us to be ruthless. It's in showing us that the world isn't black and white. Sometimes good people have to play dirty, and sometimes seemingly harsh actions lead to better outcomes. It's like that friend who tells you the brutal truth instead of a comforting lie, painful in the moment, but maybe exactly what you needed to hear. He was telling us to stop being naive about power while also warning us about the cost of using it wrongly. Fast forward to today, and Machiavelli's influence is everywhere. From corporate boardrooms to political campaigns, from The Godfather to Succession, his shadow looms large. They even named a whole personality trait after him, Machiavellianism. Talk about personal branding. Every time you see a CEO make a tough but necessary decision, or a politician pivot their position for strategic advantage, you're seeing Machiavelli's ideas in action. But here's the final mindbender. Machiavelli himself never achieved great power. Maybe he was just really bad at taking his own advice. Or maybe, just maybe, he was trying to tell us something deeper. Perhaps his real message wasn't about how to grab power, but about understanding its true nature so we can build something better. It's like he was saying, look, this is how the game is played. Now that you know the rules, what are you going to do about it? Because here's the thing. We're all painting on the same canvas of humanity. Every tweet, every decision, every interaction adds another brushstroke. Machiavelli showed us the world as it was, and sometimes still is. But the real question he leaves us with is this. Now that we see the truth, what kind of world do we want to create? Can we build a system where being good isn't a weakness? Where effectiveness doesn't require ruthlessness? So, next time you're facing a tough choice between being nice and being effective, remember, even Machiavelli knew that the game changes with the times. Maybe the real power move in today's world isn't fear or love. Maybe it's having the wisdom to know which one to choose and the courage to stay human either way. Perhaps the ultimate Machiavellian move is knowing when not to be Machiavellian at all. Drop a comment below. Would you rather be feared or loved? And more importantly, why? Have you ever had to choose between being nice and being effective? Share your stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more mind-bending historical hot takes that'll make you question everything you thought you knew about power, leadership, and human nature.